What is up? Zach here with Dr. Eyeball MD. Welcome back to my channel. I'm a third-year ophthalmology resident. If you're new to the channel, consider liking the video if you do dig it, and subscribe to the channel if you find any value in this video. So while I normally make videos about ophthalmology, medicine, and kind of day in the lifestyle stuff for ophthalmology, today I'm going to go in slight different direction. I'm going to talk about a parable from a book that I read recently, just because I'm finding it more and more interesting to maybe kind of branch out into some stuff on philosophy and more like productivity and ways in which we learn, because that's kind of something that really interests me, is like styles of learning, styles of developing. So in today's video, it's gonna be a little more podcast style. I got my cool little microphone here and my arm and everything. We got a little like studio right here in my living room that I've made. I've got some new audio equipment that's going to be coming in the mail soon, so the audio will be even better, but hopefully this is tolerable. So the parable that I want to go over today is from a book called Failing Forward, and I'll link that down in the description below if you're interested in reading it. I mentioned it in a previous video, but the parable is this. Essentially, it revolves around a teacher, and this teacher has a class. It's an art class, and what he does on the first day of class, because this is a pottery class specifically, it's a pottery art class at a school, and he has a bunch of new students first day of class, and what he decides to do is to figure out the way to help these students kind of make the best pot out of clay. So this pottery class, they're going to make a clay pot, and he wants to see who can make the best pot, essentially. So what he decides to do is actually split the class into two groups. The one group is going to be graded on their ability to make the nicest single pot. So their goal is for them to get an A in this class. They're going to be graded on the quality of one single pot that they make. And that's how they're going to get their grade. So that's half the class. Now it's randomly split up. So half the class is going to be graded that way. And the other half of the class, what he decides to do is to grade them on their ability to make 50 pots in a given time frame. I think, like 2 weeks. That gives the kids 2 weeks. Half the class is going to make a pot, and it's going to be graded off of the quality of it, how nice it is. If they get an A, if it's a superb pot. If it's okay, B, C. If it's not so great, and so forth. But the other group is going to be graded strictly on the number of pots, regardless of the quality. They just have to crank out 50 pots. And if they do that, they get an A. If they get 40 pots in the 40s, they'll get a B. In the 30s, they'll get a C, and so forth, so forth. So this is what he decides to do. And so he gives them the 2 weeks. The kids work on it. And what he notices at the end of 2 weeks is maybe not what you would expect. You would expect that the group that is being graded on the quality of the pots that they're making to have nicer pots, and the group that is trying to churn out 50 pots, regardless of quality, would not have a higher quality end product, not have so nice of a pot. But interestingly, what this professor finds at the end of these 2 weeks is that the group that was tasked with making the higher quantity of pots, the group that was supposed to make 50 pots, actually had the nicer, higher quality pots than the group that specifically focused on just making one super high quality pot. Now, this isn't what you would expect. You would think that the group that is going for quantity is just churning out crappy pots. But what's interesting here is that because they are making so many, and because they are failing so many times at making pots, they're learning along the way. And because they're doing it over and over and over, and they're getting in the reps of just making pots, they get better at it. They get better and better and better at it. And I think the message here that we can apply is something that a lot of us face in just anything that we do. And you can think of it, for example, with YouTube. So if you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel, or you're thinking about doing anything, a lot of us want perfection right in the beginning. We want to study things, to the nth degree. We want to watch videos on how to do things, lectures on how to do things before we ever actually start doing anything, thinking that we will be perfect at it and have the super highest quality pot right from the beginning, if we can just learn everything about it. Whereas what this parable is trying to speak to is, if we can just do the thing and actually try it, we will get better at it from sheer virtue of failing at it over and over. And it's maybe a more painful way to do things and a more painful way to learn, but that's what it ultimately results in, is actually learning how to do things and how to perfect something. So again, going back to the YouTube channel, when I started this channel, if you go back to the first videos, they're very painful to watch, and maybe they're still painful for some people to watch. But anyways, they have improved dramatically. So rather than trying to make the perfect YouTube video from the very beginning by learning everything about videography and buying the nicest gear and all that kind of stuff before ever even making a video or ever even just committing to doing the task at hand, I just turned my phone sideways and started filming, and they were crappy. But then I made another one, and it was a little better, and so forth and so forth. And then 50 videos in, 50 pots in, it's better than what I probably could have done on my first try had I just bought all the nicest equipment and studied so much videography and just tried to make one perfect video from the beginning. So the message here is basically, don't get paralyzed by wanting to understand something so much before you ever started. Just start doing it. Realize that it's going to be bad in the beginning. Realize that you're going to fail at it. One of my favorite YouTubers said that he just had to realize that the first 50 videos he made were going to be total and utter crap, and just to get through those first 50. That's your goal with anything you're doing, with anything you're trying to learn, is just to get through the first 50 reps, the first metaphorical 50 pots. Just get through them, and by virtue of doing that, you're going to get a lot better at whatever it is. So that was just an interesting parable that I kind of took away from this book. It's a good book all around. He goes into a lot of different kind of outlooks on failure and how to kind of apply failure in a constructive way. And I use that because I recently failed at something that was kind of a big juncture, big crossroads in my life, and I didn't get what I wanted, what I had hoped to get. And I listened to that audiobook that night because rather than let it be a failure, rather than let it be kind of, kind of break me down, I just looked at it as, how do I learn from this? How do I turn this into a constructive thing? And that opened my eye to this book. And then it kind of led me to that parable, which I thought was really cool. So be willing to go make 50 pots in whatever you're trying to do. Don't try to make the perfect pot right from the beginning. You will make the perfect pot after you've made a whole bunch of pots. Anyways, I hope you guys liked that video. If you did, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm Zach with Dr. Eyeball MD, and I'll see you guys in the next one.